Have you ever felt like you're trapped in a life that wasn't meant for you? Like you're going through the motions, checking boxes, fulfilling obligations, but something deep inside is screaming that this isn't it? Have you ever wondered why, despite having everything you thought you wanted, you still feel empty? Like there's a void that nothing can fill. Not success, not relationships, not achievements, not distractions. Maybe you're exhausted from pretending that everything makes sense when in reality, you wake up every day without knowing why you're even trying anymore. Maybe you've convinced yourself that this is just how life is, that the weight you carry, that existential heaviness, is simply part of being an adult. But let me tell you something that might shake you. The problem is not that life has no meaning. The problem is that you've been looking for meaning in all the wrong places. As long as you wait for the world to give you a reason to exist, you will remain empty. As long as you believe that meaning comes from outside, from recognition, from success, from being loved, you will be a hostage to circumstances. And this is not pessimism. This is the reality that most people refuse to face. The difference is that some distract themselves better than others. Viktor Frankl, one of the most profound minds in existential psychology and a survivor of the concentration camps, said that those who have a why to live can bear almost any how, and that's where the revolution begins. It's not about finding happiness, it's not about eliminating suffering, it's about discovering what makes your suffering worthwhile, because freedom is not the absence of pain, it's the choice of what you do with it. If you've made it this far, it's not by chance. This video is for you who feel like you're living someone else's life. It's for you who sense that you're wasting your existence on things that don't truly matter. I want to show you that it doesn't have to be this way, but for that, you will have to confront some truths that may be uncomfortable, and perhaps, for the first time, this discomfort will set you free. Let's get started. You believe that what empties you is out there, in the monotony of routine, in the disappointments you've accumulated, in the dreams that didn't come true, in the people who didn't value you. But the truth is brutal. None of this really has the power to empty you unless you have already abandoned yourself from within. What destroys you is not what life does to you, it's the meaning, or lack thereof, that you attribute to what happens. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. It's the belief that your existence needs to be justified by something external. It's the desperation to fill the void with anything that numbs the essential question: what am I here for? Frankl shows us that the emptiness we feel is not a flaw in the system, it's a call. He called it the existential vacuum, that feeling that even when everything is supposedly fine, something fundamental is missing. And here's the uncomfortable part. You feel this way because you've been living for the wrong reasons. You've been chasing happiness as if it were a destination. You've been seeking approval as if it were oxygen. You've been accumulating achievements as if they were proof of your worth. But none of this fills you because none of this is meaning. Happiness is a consequence, not a goal. And as long as you make it your objective, you will always be one step behind it. Here comes the hardest truth. You still feel so empty because on some level, you're waiting for someone or something to tell you that your life matters. You're still waiting for permission to exist with purpose. You're still trying to be relevant enough, successful enough, loved enough, as if that guarantees that your existence will finally make sense. But validation is an illusion. And as long as you depend on it, you live in constant anxiety, always trying to prove your worth, always afraid of being exposed as insufficient. Do you want to stop feeling empty? Then stop searching for meaning outside yourself. What you need is not more success, more recognition, more love. What you need is to choose, consciously, deliberately, what your life will be about. As long as you wait for circumstances to change for you to feel that your life has purpose, you will remain a prisoner of fate. Your freedom begins the moment you understand that meaning is not found, it is created. And this is exactly where the true battle lies. In the void that you've been trying to escape instead of inhabiting, What you refuse to face controls you. And this is what we will explore in the next part. Get ready to go one level deeper, because that's where true transformation begins. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. The biggest lie you've been sold is that life should have automatic meaning, that there's some cosmic purpose already written for you, that if you just find the right path, the right person, the right career, everything will suddenly make sense. Wake up, because that's not how it works. At least not as long as you continue living reactively, drifting through existence without asking the fundamental questions, feeling lost without understanding why, making choices that lead nowhere. Viktor Frankl made this clear when he said, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." And that is exactly what's happening to you right now. The anxiety you feel, the emptiness that appears out of nowhere, the sense that you're wasting your time, none of this is random. They are symptoms of a life without direction, without intention, without a why. Frankl referred to this condition as existential frustration. It's not just sadness, it's not depression in the clinical sense. It's the specific suffering that comes from living without purpose. And unlike other forms of pain, this one doesn't go away with comfort, pleasure, or distraction. In fact, the more you try to escape it, the worse it gets. You wonder why certain failures devastate you while others barely affect you. Because those failures touch the core question you haven't answered yet. What is my life about? And if you don't have an answer, every setback feels like evidence that your existence is meaningless. Frankl said, "When we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And what have you been doing? Running, avoiding, blaming circumstances, other people, bad luck, as if that would solve anything. The truth is that the existential vacuum doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It only finds more destructive ways to manifest, in addictions that you rationalize, in relationships that you cling to out of fear of being alone, in work that you throw yourself into to avoid thinking, in endless entertainment that numbs but never satisfies. This is not bad luck. It's your life trying to wake you up, but you insist on sleeping. Do you want to be someone who lives with purpose? Then stop running from the fundamental question, what am I willing to suffer for? Because meaning is not found in comfort. It's found in commitment, in choosing something bigger than your own pleasure, your own pain, your own ego. But there's a way forward, and it's not in finding the perfect answer, it's in taking responsibility for the question. Because living with meaning is not a state of arrival, it's an act of continuous creation. This is what we'll see next, what it truly means to live with purpose, and why this strength doesn't come from having all the answers, but from embracing the responsibility of the question itself. Let's continue. Most people believe that the only way to avoid existential suffering is by finding their one true purpose. They search desperately for that magical calling, that perfect mission, that cosmic reason for being here, and they say, "Once I find my purpose, everything will make sense. Once I discover what I'm meant to do, I'll finally be fulfilled." But inside, they continue to drift. They keep searching because the problem was never about finding purpose, it was about creating it. And this only paralyzes those who don't yet understand that meaning is not discovered. It's chosen. Frankl was precise when he stated, "Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment." But notice, he didn't say you must find it. He said you must fulfill it. The assignment is already there, in every moment, in every choice, in every circumstance you face. Living with purpose has nothing to do with having a grand mission. It has nothing to do with changing the world, becoming famous, or leaving a legacy. It has to do with responding, with taking responsibility for the moment you're in, for the people in front of you, for the suffering you can alleviate, for the work you can do with integrity. You don't find meaning by looking inward endlessly. You create meaning by turning outward, toward what needs to be done, toward who needs your presence, toward what calls you to be more than you currently are, when you stop asking, "What can I get from life?" and start asking, "What is life asking of me right now?" everything changes. You stop being a victim of circumstances. You stop waiting for the world to give you permission to matter. You become the author of your own existence, not through grand declarations, but through small, deliberate choices. Frankl called this self-transcendence, the human capacity to look beyond oneself towards something or someone else. He said, "Being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself. You don't become whole by focusing on yourself endlessly. You become whole by forgetting yourself in service of something that matters. And here's the secret no one told you. The more you search for meaning for yourself, the more it eludes you. The more you try to fill your own void, the emptier you become. But when you commit to something beyond yourself, when you choose to matter in the lives of others, when you dedicate yourself to work that serves, when you love not to be loved back but because you choose to, the void fills itself. However, this path requires courage. Courage to stop waiting. Courage to choose even without certainty. Courage to commit to meaning even when the world offers you comfort instead. And that's what we'll discover in the next part. How suffering, far from being meaningless, can become the very foundation of a life worth living. Let's dive deeper, and this time without the illusion that life owes you answers. You learn to fear suffering since you were young. You were taught that pain is something to avoid at all costs, that struggle is a sign you're doing something wrong, that if you're suffering, you failed somehow. And so you began to run, to seek comfort, to eliminate friction, to optimize your life for pleasure and away from pain. But the more you flee from suffering, the more meaningless it becomes. And the worst part, it doesn't disappear. It just becomes senseless, arbitrary, crushing. Because suffering without meaning is unbearable. It's the suffering that breaks people. But suffering with meaning, that's something entirely different. And Frankl saw this firsthand in the concentration camps. He witnessed that those who survived were not necessarily the strongest or the healthiest. They were those who had a reason to endure, a loved one waiting for them, work that needed to be completed, a testimony that had to be given. He said, "In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. But you don't believe this yet, you still think suffering is the enemy. You still believe that a good life is one without pain. And that's why you crumble when things get hard. That's why setbacks feel like catastrophes. That's why you feel cheated when life doesn't go as planned. The truth is that suffering hurts so much because you haven't given it meaning yet. There is still a part of you that believes pain is pointless, that struggle is punishment, that difficulty is evidence that something is wrong with you or your life. But what if it's not? What if suffering is not the opposite of a meaningful life, but the raw material of it? Frankl understood that you cannot avoid suffering. It's woven into the fabric of existence. Loss will come, failure will come, pain will come. The only question is, what will you make of it? Because suffering can crush you or forge you, depending entirely on the meaning you give it. When you endure hardship for nothing, it destroys you. When you endure hardship for someone, for something, for a purpose you've chosen, it strengthens you. Not because the pain is less, but because it matters. This is the transformation from "why is this happening to me" to "what is this asking of me?" From "this is unbearable" to "what am I willing to bear and for what?" Frankl knew this. He understood that suffering is not optional, but meaning is. Pain is not the end of the road. It's the invitation to become someone who can carry it with dignity. The problem is that most people refuse the invitation. They medicate, distract, numb, avoid. They return to comfort as quickly as possible, but not you. If you've made it this far, it's because you're ready to face the question, what am I willing to suffer for? And in the next part, we'll understand how this question, this single clarifying question, becomes the foundation of a life that cannot be shaken. Let's continue It's getting profound now. Few people have the courage to live a life they've consciously chosen, and even fewer have the courage to maintain that choice when it becomes difficult, when the world doesn't applaud, when the rewards don't come, because living with meaning doesn't promise comfort. It doesn't offer convenience. It doesn't protect your ego. It demands it. It requires you to stand for something, even when it costs you something. Frankl referred to this as the tragic triad: pain, guilt, and death. These three unavoidable aspects of human existence. You will suffer, you will fail, you will die. No amount of positive thinking, self-optimization, or success can change these facts. But here's what changes everything. You can choose what you make of them. You can choose to suffer for something that matters. You can choose to learn from your failures instead of being defined by them. You can choose to live in a way that makes your limited time meaningful. Frankl wrote, "Live as if you were living already for the second time and as if you had acted the first time as wrongly as you're about to act now." In other words, imagine you're at the end of your life, looking back. What would you regret? What would you wish you had done differently? Now act accordingly. This is the shift from unconscious drifting to conscious living, from reaction to response, from victimhood to authorship. It is in this process that you begin to become unshakable, not because nothing affects you anymore, but because you've anchored yourself to something deeper than circumstances. You've chosen what your life is about, and no external event can take that away from you. You may lose everything, but you cannot lose your choice. You may be stripped of freedom, comfort, health, but you cannot be stripped of your attitude, your dignity, your meaning. That remains yours until the end. This internal anchor, this commitment to meaning, gives you a strength that doesn't depend on outcomes, recognition, or fairness. You no longer need life to be easy. You no longer need people to understand. You no longer need validation because you know what you stand for, and no one can take that away from you. True resilience is not armor, it's purpose. It's the unshakable knowledge that your life is about something, and that something is worth whatever it costs. However, this depth comes at a price: solitude. Not because you'll be alone, but because few people can walk this path with you. Most are still chasing comfort, still avoiding the question, still waiting for life to hand them meaning on a silver platter. And when you stop waiting, when you choose, when you commit, when you live with intention, you inevitably distance yourself from those who are still drifting. But this distancing is not rejection, it's evolution. You don't distance yourself out of superiority. You distance yourself because you no longer fit where you once hid. You no longer resonate with distraction, with complaints, with passive living. And this brings us to the final point of this journey: meaning as the ultimate freedom. Because it's not circumstances that imprison you, it's the absence of a reason to endure them. This is what we'll discuss in the last part: meaning as the only state in which nothing, absolutely nothing, can take away your will to live. Let's finish this journey together. We're almost there. Now that you've made it this far, there is something that needs to be said with absolute clarity. Nothing, absolutely nothing, will shield you from suffering if you continue to live without knowing what you're suffering for. The losses will continue to devastate you. The failures will continue to defeat you. The pain will continue to crush you. Until you answer the one question that changes everything: what makes this worth it? Viktor Frankl said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." You've spent your whole life focused on the how to be happy, how to avoid pain, how to succeed, how to be loved, but you've never stopped to clarify the why. Why are you here? What do you stand for? What would you endure difficulty for? Who would you sacrifice comfort for? What matters so much that you'd be willing to suffer to protect it, build it, serve it? Until you answer this, you will remain adrift. Every hardship will feel like an injustice. Every setback will feel like evidence that life is meaningless. Every loss will confirm your fear that nothing matters. But when you clarify your why, when you choose what your life is about, everything changes. The same circumstances that once destroyed you now become challenges you rise to meet. The same pain that once seemed pointless now becomes the price you willingly pay. The same struggles that once made you want to quit now become evidence that you're living for something real. Frankl said, "What is to give light must endure burning. You cannot have a meaningful life without friction. You cannot matter without sacrifice. You cannot love deeply without the risk of loss. You cannot create anything significant without the possibility of failure." But now you know, true freedom is not the absence of suffering. It's the presence of meaning that makes suffering bearable. It's not about protecting yourself from life. It's about engaging with it fully, knowing what you're fighting for. What shields you is not avoiding pain. It's anchoring yourself to purpose. Those who live for nothing are destroyed by everything. Those who live for something can endure anything, and that is where you're headed now. Not to a life without suffering, but to a life where suffering serves something, where pain has purpose, where struggle has meaning. And when you live from that place, when you've chosen your why and committed to it, the world may try to break you, but it can no longer take what matters most. Because what matters most is not out there. It's the choice you've made about what your life means. If this video has awakened something within you, if something has shifted, write here in the comments, "I choose meaning." Let's start a movement of people who no longer want to drift through life waiting for purpose to find them, but who will create it with every choice they make. And don't forget, the next video is also part of this journey. It's crucial. You have to keep going. Real transformation only begins when you don't stop at the first insight. I'll see you there.